Welcome to the SyrupCast. I'm your host, Igor Bonifasic. It is December 8th, I believe. I could be totally wrong.
December 9th.
9th. I wrote the podcast on December 8th, and that is what is important.
That's right. It's all scripted.
But time doesn't exist, so it doesn't matter what the date is.
It's just a figment.
Yep.
It is episode 99, and on this episode, we're going to party like it's 99. I'm joined today by my wonderful friends and co-host, because last time I totally left him for last. This time we'll do him first. Zachary Gilbert. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. Yourself?
Pretty good.
That's good.
Rose?
Hey, everyone.
Sup?
Sup. I think is the appropriate response to that.
It is.
And I am here as well,
Yes.
Patrick.
I don't know who you are. Get out of this podcast.
I forget my name sometimes.
Yes. On this week's podcast, we'll be talking about the demise of one company called Pebble. You may have heard of them. And also S8 rumors. Let's jump to the music, and when we're back, we'll jump right into the topics. Welcome back. So, if you hadn't heard the news, Pebble is done. Patrick, you are one who is, to put it lightly, a Pebble fanboy.
Yep, that's me.
So do you want to run us through what happened?
Yeah. So there's been rumors swirling, I guess, for a couple months that Pebble was going to be acquired. A bunch of different companies were named. But in the end, turned out that Fitbit is buying Pebble. But not actually buying the company, more sort of just buying Fitbit's spare parts. The rumor is
Pebble spare.
Pebble spare parts. Good
spare
correction.
parts, yeah. They went Google on them and shut them down.
Yeah.
They're basically shutting them down. And the Pebble brand likely will not live on, and they are hiring a bunch of Pebble engineers and also likely taking their software assets. So that's the story as it stands right now. We don't know. There's a lot of questions that are still unanswered. Like, we don't know how much longer Pebble's App Store is going to be operational. We do know that Pebble is no longer manufacturing smartwatches and that they are not releasing the Pebble Time 2 or the Pebble Core. Which makes me very sad.
Well, a lot of people are excited about the Core, right? Because it was possibly the first device to bring Amazon Alexa to Canada.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
And that doesn't.
Well, now that's not happening.
Yeah.
Well, I think there is another Kickstarter smartwatch that is doing the same, but I cannot remember the name.
And it's crazy too, because like I'm just looking at the stats here. Like, Pebble was the highest funded. The original Pebble, when it first came out back in 2012, was the highest funded
at the time. Only to be broken.
Do you know what the highest one is now?
Pebble again.
Yeah,
Pebble
they
broke
beat
it?
themselves.
Yeah, Pebble broke it.
The highest funded Kickstarter project in the platform's history, $10 million, 70,000 backers. It was like this sort of Kickstarter darling story, right?
Yep.
And I remember at the time, I was working at Canada.com, and my editor, William Wolf Wiley, pre-ordered it, got it right away. And then he convinced me to get one probably a couple months later when the price went down a little bit.
Right. And what's interesting, I remember Paul Graham, who is the founder of Y Combinator, PG as they like to call him, at the time. I think it was the Pebble Time, so the subsequent biggest Kickstarter. I think their Kickstarter campaign coincided with the announcement of the Apple Watch.
Yeah.
And he was tweeting how as soon as he had asked Eric Mijikovatsky, the founder and former CEO now of Pebble, what had the announcement of the Apple Watch done for your Kickstarter? And he said, we saw a huge jump in people backing the campaign,
which was like a super ballsy thing to say.
Yeah.
And at the time, a lot of people didn't believe it. And he was Eric was sort of known for sort of going at Apple in interviews. Like, I remember seeing him on Bloomberg TV and stuff like that, where he would just straight up say, like, our device offers very different functionality. I guess in a nice way.
Also Canadian, I should point out.
Yeah.
So, mentioning Canadian, this story of Pebble almost kind of mirrors the story of BlackBerry in a way. So, just to kind of rewind it a couple years. Okay. So Pebble pretty much started the industry of smart wearables, right? We can all kind of agree on that. But they were in Waterloo is where they started years ago with the Impulse, and they were called Alerta. They weren't called Pebble.
And was that company still part of BlackBerry?
No, so they were actually never. So they were never part of it. But I actually interviewed Eric way back when they were working out of their house.
This is like in 2010, right? Or before that?
Yeah, I could check. I'm not exactly.
I think
sure
it,
the
I think
time frame,
I think when you shared that video, the date was like 2010.
yeah, so it was out of their old dorm house, right? Because most of them went to University of Waterloo. They tried to work with BlackBerry. They're making a smartwatch specifically for BlackBerry devices, and it was pretty, color display. Lasted a couple days, very similar to what it is now. A little bit bulky, but yeah, they tried to work with BlackBerry, and BlackBerry just wouldn't work with them. Wouldn't have anything to do with them. And then
surprise.
Yeah, and maybe it could have been something different then. So, but they pushed through, and it was a pretty big hit, being the first one. And then when they didn't get traction, and no one in Waterloo supported them at the time because it was an innovative idea and everything, they moved down to the Valley, and that's kind of when they went to Pebble, and they changed their name and did all that stuff.
The other thing that I found really interesting too is Eric came into our office in 2015. And he sat down with Daniel and I, Daniel, our former editor-in-chief, and he said like all kinds of very interesting things about the, I think at the time, was it the Time 2? Was that right after the Time 2 announcement?
The Steel?
I feel like it was...
It was the Round. He was talking about the Round.
Yeah,
because he brought us the Round, and I subsequently did the review of the Round for Mobile Syrup. But the most interesting quote that he had was Daniel like straight up asked him, like, does Pebble make a profit? How are you guys doing financially? Because they're not a publicly traded company, right? Yep. So no one knew about their financials. And Eric said, Pebble has money. We make products that get better over time, that do a couple things really well. So where did the money go?
I mean, do you believe that?
I don't know.
I don't.
So the rumors I had heard was that there was a lot of discontent with Eric as a leader, right? Like he had the kind of product vision, but he wasn't a great kind of management person.
Okay.
Right. And it's kind of a situation where I think, when Google founded, they specifically hired, what's his name? His name escapes me right now.
Tony?
But Google, Larry and Sergey, they hired, he's the chairman of
Eric Schmidt?
Schmidt.
Okay.
They hired Schmidt, and thank you, Patrick. And the reason was they're like, we need to bring in a parent in, right? Because like they had all the crazy great ideas, but Schmidt had the kind of the business acumen, the kind of the government knowledge to really help Google grow, right? And I'm not sure what happened, and I think it really sucks because we may never know what really happened at Pebble. And it's crazy to think because I was looking at their Crunchbase profile, and they had something like 12 million in funding from what was disclosed, right? But then you also have all the money that was raised in Kickstarter, which I think is, on one sense, like, there's a sense that products are underpriced on Kickstarter, right? Like, it's especially true on games, right? Where
very, very much so.
Just to bring a parallel, like in the, when people go and pitch a video game on Kickstarter, they totally undersell the budget. Like
it's like a proof of concept to a certain extent.
Well,
for
not
gaming.
It's not just that, but they totally they're not forthright with how expensive it is to make a game,
true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they're like, we can make this amazing game for 500,000, not like 2 million, right? And then just on the assumption that there's gonna be that it's going to go over.
And then they launch like a few more Kickstarters later for more money.
Yeah, or it just turns out to be complete garbage. But I guess that's a bit different with Pebble because you have a product, like you're like, hey, it costs $200. Like that comes with the assumption that like that's what it takes. That factors in all the like price, right?
That's the thing that I think is a little bit different about this is that the Core, the Time 2, and the Pebble 2 were announced. It's not like Pebble went silent after the release of the first ones, right? Like they showed products, they showed things that were coming, and they even released the Pebble 2. Like you can go to the store and buy the Pebble 2 right now. I'm gonna buy one if it's on sale at some point, just because I want one.
Sure.
And to me, it's just crazy that you announce those products. You even like were down the line releasing them, and then it's almost like something must have happened. Or I don't know, like how did you not have the foresight to know that the funds were running out, or did they hope that someone was going to come in and save them, like they're going to get some kind of angel investment money?
So
that's a great question.
Part of it is, in Silicon Valley, it's like if you don't have the as I like to joke, the 10x return, it's not worth your time, right? Like we know Citizen offered to buy Pebble for $740 million, I think it was.
Yeah, it's around that much,
which is amazing.
But it's the whole like Snapchat thing where Facebook offered to buy Snapchat and they said no, right?
That was an oddity, though. That wasn't considered that's not something that happens all the time.
But it's the same thing happened to Facebook, right? Like Facebook probably had tons of offers.
Oh yeah,
and Zuckerberg said no, right? Because if you're not a billionaire coming out of this company, a millionaire is not enough, right? Yeah. Like it's considered a failure in some sense. Like 740 million, the return on if you just invested 12 million as an angel to get some part of 740 million, like I'm shocked that they didn't like push them to say yes, right? Because the whole industry is just run on these returns. But I guess the interesting question I want to ask you guys now, like, how does this change Fitbit? Like, do we now see them, like, does the Blaze get scrapped? And do we now see, like, some kind of, like, offshoot of the Pebble?
I think that the Pebble brand is dead. Like, Fitbit.
But the technology is not.
The technology is not. But I don't see Fitbit releasing a device that uses, like, an e-ink display in the way that Pebble did.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're just essentially buying their engineers. I don't see any of their like operating system.
And getting rid of a competitor.
I don't see them using the brand. I don't see them using the devices. We're never going to see the Time 2. We're never going to see the Core. I don't even think that we're going to see like the operating system on Pebble and then on Fitbit in any way. They're just buying them for spare parts.
Well, they've purchased companies before and done nothing with them, right?
Yep, like
Coin 2 years ago, I think it was, that they bought them and.
Actually, more recent than that. Even.
Was it last year? But I don't think it was this year, but I could be wrong. But then they did nothing with it.
Yeah, exactly. They just sort of like to purchase up engineers. It seems engineering talent.
They like to buy things and not use them, like me. Like when I buy video games and then don't use them.
Well, it's like a common thing that.
It's common in Silicon Valley because the talent is so scarce and expensive. So when you can get like 40 million for all the intellectual. Less than 40 million for all the intellectual property and engineers is like, and again, like Lauren Good at The Verge wrote, like this is mostly about getting rid of a competitor, right? And I think
that's totally what it is.
40 million to assassinate one of your competitors in a market that is like shrinking is a good deal, right? Like that's probably the best 40 million that Fitbit spent this year, right?
And they're going to have a great position now as the fitness and health tracker,
right?
Focused company in the market.
Is going down, right? So
Jawbone is up in flames, and Pebble had kind of realized that the fitness and health thing was a niche market that it could,
the heart rate sensor was even in the Pebble 2. It was going to be in the Time, and the Core was. Like, there's no way to deny that was not a fitness device. It wasn't even a fitness-focused device. That was for fitness. That's what the Core was about.
But, I mean, I hope, because I think what was, in the little time that I've used Pebble devices, what I think was really beyond the actual hardware, the e-ink display, it was more so the software that was the really kind of, especially with the timeline, right? Like, that was, I think, the real differentiating feature.
For me, I used to use an original Pebble for a very long time. I used a friend's Time for a bit, and I reviewed the Round for Mobile Syrup, and I used it for a really long time. For me, the big thing with Pebble was just the simple fact that its operating system was so focused on notifications, and that's how I personally used a smartwatch. So the fact that the e-ink display allowed it to last like a week. I know the Time Round only had like 2 days. That was a bit of a different situation, but the battery life was about a week, and it was very focused on notifications rather than apps. There were really cool apps out there. That worked quite well, but nothing at the level of what Android Wear and what WatchOS is capable of with the Apple Watch. It was a notification-focused device that kind of pivoted into fitness features with the new ones. And notifications is what all I use my smartwatches for. So it was perfect for me. But I know a lot of people criticize it for not having, I guess the app selection that they expected.
Well, I think with the industry as a whole, like we were saying kind of last week, it looks like health and fitness is really going to be the only thing that survives in terms of like the wearable that's on your wrist. Like the actual aspect of sort of having a computer on your wrist, that hasn't really played out so far. Notifications, like you said, like I like those too, but they're really something that you can take or leave.
And it's also, so it depends on like what you do too, right? Like I like notifications for what I do for a living. Like I can put my phone away when I get home, and I have it set up to only send me priority emails. So if there's something important comes through, I know that it happens. And then like I like to sort of triage the amount of stuff that I'm getting through my watch. But for like one of my friends who doesn't work in media or whatever, right? Like they're going to be like, why would I want to do that? So it's a very specific use case for me anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know what you guys think, but what would you think their number one downfall was? Like what put them in this place? Like my
I think it's the softening of the market, right? Yeah. Like I think that's the main thing is like so my favorite fitness tracker is the Charge 2, but I've even stopped using it because I mean, there was this interesting article I read in the New York Times where I think the majority of people stop using their fitness trackers after 6 months. And even though they stop using them, they've more or less maxed out the health benefits of it. Like they're still more active even after they've stopped using the health tracker, right? Like big problem with these fitness trackers is that like you have the stats, but so what? Like they don't really, part of it is like, FDA regulation. Part of it is just the difficulty of like, what do you do with these stats, right? Like, so you walk 10,000 steps in a day, then what, and also like in and of itself, a fitness tracker does not replace the motivation. It can supplement and help, but it does not replace the motivation you actually need to get healthy. And you can find that motivation without spending $100, so on a fitness tracker, right? So I think, as I said last week, like it's a market that is still searching for its killer purpose.
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot of the impetus to buy like fitness trackers and watches, smartwatches right now is just for like the status symbol. And that's why a lot of them were going towards these really sort of, and Fitbit especially, these really sort of like aesthetically minded watches.
What's the Fitbit that I hate? The one?
Blaze.
The Blaze. That is the least aesthetically minded Fitbit product or any wearable I've ever seen.
Too, it came with this gold plated pendant that was over $200 by itself.
I remember there was an interesting back when Daniel was here, we had a meeting, and it was Daniel, Patrick, and I was like, Daniel asked me if I wanted to do something about wearables, and I just kind of shrugged, right?
I remember
and
that.
I was like, they're not interesting, right? Like it feels so much like 3D was on TVs, where it's just this thing that manufacturers want to push because they need to develop a new vertical so that they can diversify their revenue streams, right? Like it's not about smartphones where there's so much like, it was Apple diversifying, but it was also, Steve Jobs had seen like, this is the future of computing, right? Like this is going to change lives.
For me, I wouldn't go so far as to say that they're not interesting, but I do think that a lot of people expected them to change their lives, and the concept of a smartwatch to be like a total game changer.
Did they expect them, or were they told it was going to change their lives? Because I think they were
told, and then they
bought into
grew
the
to
hype.
expect it. But I don't think that that's what wearables or smartwatches in general were ever going to be.
I think probably people even in the industry really believed that it could be the future, because at a certain point, people were wondering, well, what is the wearable that's going to be the killer thing?
Well, there's
the glasses. Is it the watch?
There's smartwatches that replace your phone, right? Like that's the idea behind them, is to replace your phone, where you have like a SIM card in it and a data connection. And I've always thought that was like incredibly stupid.
So it's interesting because like the first time I met Tom Emmerich, who I shouted out last week, he this was at the time when Google Glass was new. So he went to every single event with Google Glass, right? And he was like, the kind of person that people, when they met him, they're like, oh, he let them try out his Google Glass and stuff. And at this point, we had a desk or a roundtable interview with Jack Dorsey, then just the CEO of Square, but subsequently now back to being the CEO of Twitter. And you can say so many different things about Jack Dorsey and his skill as a CEO, but what was really interesting just in that moment of time was that Jack was like, we believe the smartphone is the ultimate way of interaction and that it is not going to be superseded by wearables. Or he said something to that effect. It's been several years now, but you could clearly see, like, he was asked something about wearables and he was like, don't know, guys, don't think it's really going to catch on, right? Like, and that's a smart guy saying that.
Well, it's the guy who is all about Twitter, which is not exactly the way of the
but
future.
This was when he was not involved with Twitter.
That's true.
Anymore,
right?
He's squaring it up.
Yeah, so it's like,
Well, Square itself too, like, I mean, now with mobile payments, I don't know if he really is riding the wave of
and
the
with
future.
the iPhone no longer having a headphone jack and Square plugging into the headphone jack.
Yeah.
Have they ever talked about that?
I don't know. I haven't. I mean,
I should look into that. It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, any last words on Pebble?
No, I'm just sad about it. I feel bad for Pebble's employees that worked to create something very cool. And sort of had this rebellious attitude, sort of laughing in the face of Apple when they released the Apple Watch.
So the worst thing, Eric, he got off. He's going to be now a advisor at Y Combinator, which is not an ideal exit, but his employees got far off worse. Their stock was worthless after the. Yeah. So you work all those years for an exit, right? And
yeah, that's hard.
you're just moving. Some of them don't have jobs and are on severance, and the other ones have a job with Fitbit, and maybe they don't want to work at Fitbit, right? Like,
I wouldn't want to work at Fitbit.
But I think I don't think that the market was as much of a cause for their decline as them themselves. Like, so from the beginning, just to kind of bring it back a little, because I wanted to touch on this, Kickstarter's not a distribution platform, but they built their whole business around using Kickstarter as a distribution platform. And on Kickstarter, they shouldn't expect a product out of it because it's a funding platform, but they did, and they're selling these things. Like the Pebble Time was on for $159, and they said they gave either 10,000, 100,000, or I think it was 10,000 units of that at that price. Sorry, I've got it open. 10,000 units. So at $159, there's no way that they're making like that product for much less than that. Like, being a company the size they are, being the volume that they're doing. And then, they did 22,000 units about 23,179. Still, they're probably not making much. But I think so that in itself, every time they release a new product, it was like, hey guys, Kickstarter. And they didn't do much. Like, they sold them at Best Buy, but how many units did Best Buy push out, right? So I think while eventually the shift in the market away from what a wearable is or who wants a wearable would kind of attribute to their demise, I think using Kickstarter as the platform for distribution was their demise.
And they could have made better strategic partnerships, right? For sure.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
That's just my 2 cents.
Good.
Yeah, I mean,
Good
it'd be fascinating to get Eric on the podcast. Maybe we should at some point try.
Well, he'll probably have some free time.
Yeah,
a little bit of free time.
A little bit of free time. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to jump into our next topic.
Rudolph.
The red
nose reindeer had a very
hold
red nose reindeer.
Oh my god.
Okay. Wait, one take.
How about I count you guys in?
Yeah, that sounds good.
3, 2, 1.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer has a very shiny nose,
like a light bulb.
And if you ever saw him, you would even say it glows
like another light bulb.
Oh my gosh. What day is it today?
Is it December 9th?
Already? Guys, have you done your Christmas shopping?
No.
I haven't started.
You know
Not
what
one
you
thing.
can do?
What? Can you help? Do you have the solution
I
for us
have a solution. You go to mobilesyrup.com.
Okay, doing that.
And there's a banner at the top of the site.
Okay.
And you click on it.
Clicked.
I hope you're doing this right now.
What? There's guides here.
Yeah, so many great Christmas guides, all for very specific people in your life.
Yeah, there's like pet lover. There's a health one here.
They're
What's
beautiful.
this one's for the gamer? Xbox Elite remote control.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's what I want.
Can
for
somebody
Christmas.
somebody send that to me, please? You know.
Oh my gosh, and there's one for pets?
Ah.
What? Look at this litter box. It looks like a robot. And if you're worried that's a little too Christmas focused, well, the fashionable techie guide is Hanukkah focused.
Bam.
So there you go.
Whoa.
Mobile Syrup readers, you gotta check it out. Go to mobilesyrup.com and take a look at our gift guides. We've got everything for anybody in every category and every price range as well. So check it out.
Amazing.
So welcome back, guys. So if you've been watching or have been reading the news, it's been pretty quiet this couple weeks, but one thing has been a constant in the past month. Rose, what's been
It's true.
Yeah.
Leaks of the S8, the Samsung Galaxy S8, the comeback kid.
Yeah, the comeback kid. Will it be? That's the question we're going to ask.
That's the big question.
So earlier this week, Bloomberg, it was not Mark Gurman, but two of his colleagues reported on the S8, talking to sources familiar with the matter, but who did not want their names disclosed. Yeah, and it was interesting because in some sense, it was like kind of, I don't know the word right now, but it was really interesting because it was like you could have a checklist
Right.
of all the stuff that had been rumored before, and then it was just like the article itself kind of read like a checklist where they're like, yes, it's gonna come out on this date, yes, it will have this, no, it won't have this.
Right.
So it was kind of like those two reporters, they came in and they're like, so will it have this? You know?
So let's go down the checklist. Is it looking like it will have that fully bezel-less look?
So how I want to do this,
Okay.
because this is still a rumor, we don't know if this is going to come to fruition, but what I'd like to do is kind of like a yes, no.
Okay.
You say yes or no, depending on how likely you think this is going to be. So I'm going to run down the list, and to do that, I'm going to steal Zach's massive computer. Sorry, Zach.
Glorious 15-inch computer.
Space gray.
So
Touch bar.
gosh, you shills. Okay, so we'll go
Just
from Pat to Zach.
Okay.
Okay, where are we? Okay. All screen bezel-less design.
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
No.
Ooh.
Okay,
Well,
we'll get back to
that's
that.
appropriate.
Virtual home button built into the screen a la iPhone 7, and possibly something equivalent to Force Touch, which makes no sense on Android. Pat?
So yes to the built-in home screen, but no to the Force Touch.
Okay. Rose?
I'm going to go with no.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Dual camera setup.
I'm gonna say no.
Okay. Rose?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go with Pat and say no.
Okay. Why no?
Because I think that Samsung doesn't care about the idea of a dual camera setup. They already have a good system with the S7 and the Note 7. And I don't think, I don't know, I just don't feel like that's something that Samsung would put in one of their devices.
Can I?
Yeah, of course, jump.
I think Samsung's just going to try and throw everything at the wall for the S8.
That's true too.
Which they should not, and which has been an issue, and kind of arguably may have been one of the issues with the Note 7.
Right.
So.
They got to bring back the eye tracking thing.
Yeah. So if you read these rumors, what's interesting about this phone is that it seems like it is like the kitchen sink and like everything. Okay. So we'll take a step back. Okay. So all screen bezel-less design. What did you guys say? Yes.
I said yes. Yeah.
You said yes, and you said no.
That's correct. Yeah.
Why did you say no?
Well, from a feature standpoint, what does it do?
It does nothing, but that's never stopped Samsung.
So no, but
That's the best point.
The curved edges.
Yeah.
So they've got their curved edges, which give it a near bezel-less. Like if you're saying the top and the bottom will have no bezel, and that could attribute to not having a home button, I guess. I just maybe they'll do it, maybe they will, but am praying that they don't, because I don't think it's beneficial to the customer. You put a case on there, well, then that screws up real estate.
See, I agree
That's the
with
same
that.
thing with the Edge though.
Yeah.
Right now already is it's really hard to put a case on the Edge.
yeah,
that
and
looks
it's hard
good.
to find one, right?
And
Like,
that's something that they need to consider for the average consumer when they're going into a cell phone store. They're also getting an OtterBox. You can't get an OtterBox for these crazy
I still think they're gonna
display-based
I still
devices.
think they're gonna do it though, just because it's like they need some kind of wow factor, and I think that for the average person, like for example, say they're reading like the National Post or whatever, and they see a story about Samsung's new phone, and they see a photo of it, and it has no bezel. Like that's gonna look instantly impressive, and maybe make them forget about the Note 7.
Well, you know what? It's very possible that they will have one special edition that it maybe has the bezel-less look, and
That's
another
true
one
too.
that does not.
We'll get to that later.
I would suspect that both will have curved edges at this point.
so one thing I'm thinking, like, with using that they need this wow factor to come over the Note bad press. Like I wholeheartedly agree, but I just don't think where they are in the product cycle that they can make those changes. You know, and if they do, are we going to have another Pixel, right? Where it was rushed and we have issues like Rose, you're having your issues with the Pixel. Just the manufacturing and the development time that takes to put and to say, hey, let's cram every freaking thing in here just because we need to make good press. I just don't think they can do that.
Depends on if they delay it too. Like, so it's.
Well, what's
I
the
think
rumor
these
date?
rumors were Mobile World Congress, which is February.
Yeah.
We'll
believe.
get to that.
So if it's then, I don't see the.
Yeah. Okay, so point B was the virtual home button, and you, Pat, said, and then Force Touch. What did you say? Yes, and
I
yes?
don't see the point in Force Touch in Android. I don't see the point of Force Touch in iOS personally either.
Yeah.
And the virtual home button, I mean, I guess it could happen, but to me, it doesn't seem like a Samsung sort of thing.
They love that physical button, even though like it's so dumb in Android.
Because even the Note 7 had a physical button, right? And
If they're going
probably
bezel,
didn't need to.
if they're going bezel-less, would they not need to?
Yeah,
do?
that's true too. Yeah, I guess that
Well,
they
I
would
mean,
have to.
you could have a button without a
But then
bezel.
it's not bezel-less.
You don't have to have a bezel behind the button.
I guess when I think of bezel-less, my vision of it is that there's no bezel on the top half of the phone, but there's still like that little strip on the bottom, which I guess isn't totally
Right,
bezel-less.
but that's
But
what
you also
the Mi
need-
Mix, the Xiaomi Mi Mix,
Yeah.
which is the bezel-less phone, the concept phone that was debuted recently. That's what it was. It had a very thin bezel at the bottom.
That's what I envisioned
Yeah.
for it, is exactly that. And I think there were rumors basically that
But you also
that's
need,
very
Yeah.
similar to Samsung's
you also
design.
need a bezel at the slight bezel at the top for the camera and the speaker.
right. I
True
can't
too,
remember how
yeah.
the Mi Mix did that.
Just
Yeah.
put all this stuff inside the screen.
Okay, fine, sure.
Just be like the Moto 360 and just put a flat tire.
Yeah, a little flat tire.
Rest in peace, Moto 360.
Headphone jack.
Oh, there's not going to be a headphone jack.
Rose.
Gosh, that's a difficult one. Did you ask the yes, no on this one?
That's what I'm asking. Yes,
Oh,
yes.
yes, yes,
So will
okay.
it have a headphone jack?
It will not.
So no.
I'm gonna say yes, it will.
Zach.
Yeah, I think it will. But it could go either way because they haven't really gone out and said like, oh no, they're just not gonna, like, we hate Apple because of this, or we hate whoever. But
So what's the reasoning?
The
What's
interesting,
Samsung's
the interesting
reasoning?
thing is they made a joke at the Note 7 reveal about like, and it has a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack
yeah.
still, and like
Mhm.
everyone
Right.
went crazy. All the journalists were clapping and cheering as they do at these events.
They were tipping
Um,
their fedoras furiously.
I think that Apple's ripped off that Band-Aid, and whether or not people like it, this is the future of how phones are going to be manufactured. And I think that Samsung is going to do the same thing that Apple did and try to justify it with minor upgrades. Whether or not those upgrades are worthwhile, we'll see. The rumor was like stereo speakers, which for me is whatever. But I do think that if they do what Apple didn't do and they make the phone really thin to give it that sort of like, wow, dude, that's really sick looking sort of, I guess, aesthetic, then a lot of people are going to be fine with it. That's
I
what they do, though.
love that aesthetic. The wow, dude, that's really
But
sick looking.
that's what Samsung does all the time, right? Like
Yeah.
I was joking before about the eye tracking thing.
Yeah.
And I remember being in university, I think that was the Note 4 or the
It's been like
the
S4, S5. I
the
think it's
S4, it wasn't the 5. It was either the 3 or the 4. And I remember a friend like
4,
looking
I
at it, and that's what he said. he was like, wow, dude, that's sick. And then he went out and bought one like that
Yeah.
day.
Mm-hmm.
So for a certain demographic that they're going after, that those kind of like features that may seem a little weird and useless to us appeal to a very specific
Absolutely.
demographic.
And I think also though Samsung is not very anti-consumer, if you might call it that. I know Beef or Zach, sorry, I call him Beef sometimes. He wouldn't agree with me that Apple is anti-consumer, but sometimes I think that they are. But Samsung generally gives consumers two options when they introduce something new that might be shocking. They often do that, or they introduce it with a non-flagship phone. And this is their flagship. This is something that they can't really afford to alienate anybody with this phone right now. I don't think they're going to cut out the headphone jack.
That's a good point. Okay, so this one is, you can't really say yes, no, so you're going to have to say either one or the other. Potentially, this phone could either ship with Snapdragon 835 or whatever the Exynos equivalent. What do you think we'll get in Canada? And for context, past year, I guess, it's been somewhat of a scattershot of what you get in Canada.
I have no idea. Because we got the Note 7 and it had Exynos, right?
It had the
had
Snapdragon.
Snapdragon.
It had Snapdragon, but the S7 has Exynos.
Yeah.
Got it backwards. I'll just say that it'll be the same this year.
Rose? Ooh, I feel like you have like a big point about this.
Well, I just feel very passionately that it should be the Snapdragon 835. I'm excited about the chipset.
Okay.
But I don't know that much about the new Exynos chip.
They're made
but
on
I'm
the same
thinking-
process, right?
Yeah, I mean they are, right?
It probably won't make a huge difference.
Well, I mean, but people get upset either way for sure.
Yeah.
I do think that it will be the Qualcomm chip that we get.
Okay,
That's my guess.
Cool. Zach?
I'm gonna go Qualcomm as well.
Okay. The less said about this, probably the better.
Just one second before we go into the other one,
No.
just because you bypassed me in the Force Touch and the home button,
Okay,
and I
sure.
was crying inside.
Okay.
And
He
Sorry.
forgets about you all the time.
I know, like last week it was not introducing me and being, oh crap, forgot. No,
I
just kidding.
totally introduced you.
You guys-
But
you guys-
continue, so.
You guys should hug it out after the pod.
So one thing I wanted to find out that you guys were saying that you don't think it's gonna get Force Touch, right? I think that's what you said.
Because Force Touch
right.
is stupid.
So
Because they have long press.
Yeah, you have long press in
It's the
Android.
same thing.
long press. So whether Force Touch is stupid or not,
Peek
you
and
know,
pop.
peek and pop. I think that that they will, because was it Google did like what was it called? They did they announced it like last year that they were working on that. That was a feature coming to. And it's long rumored that Google has been working on a Force Touch feature for Android.
Very exciting. Sarcasm.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah.
wait.
But that's just why I just wanted to
Boring.
throw that in. That's why I think that. That's why I said yes. I think
All right.
they will.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. A personal assistant. Yes. Or no?
Yes.
What is it called?
V
Yeah.
Labs.
they
Live.
bought some company.
Yeah, they've already said yes
I-
to this.
They've
I think-
said yes.
I think it's
yeah.
a yes all around from everybody.
Okay.
Exciting yes, though. It sounds like a really interesting AI,
What-
and the learning algorithm is supposed to be very advanced.
AIs are overrated.
They made Siri, wasn't it?
Yes, they
Yeah,
did.
they did.
Yeah.
So that's a plus in Zach's book.
Yeah.
This is a next
hey,
generation
the
Siri.
Samsung Assistant was horrendous.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
S-Voice,
like
yeah.
S-Voice was the worst voice assistant known to man.
It was funny. There was a commenter. They were like, "How could you forget about S-Voice?"
They loved it.
I
They use
was
it
like-
every day.
I'm like, because Samsung has forgotten about S-Voice.
true.
They haven't updated it in like 2
I-
years.
I just hope that with this assistant, they give it a unique voice. Maybe an old man. I would love
Jeeves,
to have an
yeah.
old man.
No, it's
voice
gonna be a woman.
assistant.
Sorry.
Damn.
I get
Only Edge models. Is this even a good thing?
I like the Edge from an aesthetic perspective, but not practical. But
Mhm.
it's not practical. I mean, I think there's still gonna be an Edge. There's a lot of people that like it.
All edges. Sorry.
Oh, you're
there's
saying only Edge?
only Edge. So you're gonna have two
No,
models.
no.
The rumor is 2 models, same size, 5.1 and 5.5.
It's not gonna be only Edge. No.
I
Okay.
say yes. A
Yes,
similar edge
what do
that
you-
was on the note.
I think it is going to be all edges, and I'm very
Agree with that.
anti-edge.
Yeah.
I am not an edge lord, as they might say. And the reason so partly because it's just like it's not consumer friendly in terms of cases and in terms of durability,
Mm-hmm.
but also because it's very difficult to use with small hands or in general, where you constantly start to feel like you're brushing up against things. And with a potentially bezel-less design, this could only become more frustrating.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But the reason I say yes is because the edge on the Note 7 was very reduced. From the S6 and stuff like that.
The edge on the Note
The
7
S7.
is great.
Yeah.
And I found it much more useful than the one on the S7, but I still like rarely used the feature during my like 5 weeks with the Note 7 before it was pulled from my hands by Samsung painfully.
Well, at least it didn't explode in your hands.
That's true.
Is that going to be a feature that we're missing?
We'll see.
Yeah,
The phone
everybody.
explodes.
Well,
Hopefully,
guys, don't get
hopefully.
ahead of yourselves.
Can we do a yes, no on whether it's going to explode?
It's not.
You guys
It's
totally
Hey,
stole my thunder.
S7.
That was the last feature point.
I'm so
Did
sorry.
you not read the podcast notes? Okay, fine.
Okay,
On a scale of 1 to 11, with 1 being the lowest number and 11 being the highest, how explosive will this phone be? And you can interpret explosive in any way you want.
It will be a 0 on the explosive scale because Samsung will not. They will do everything in their power and all kinds of crazy testing for this not to happen again.
This phone will not have a battery.
You're gonna have to plug
Just
it into
constantly plugged in.
It'll run on hipster power.
So explosive level, I mean, I don't know, 6.5. I mean, Samsung always pushes the limits. It'll be.
You might say
interesting
they're
to
on
see.
the edge of innovation.
Yes, they're on the
Whoa.
thin edge
Yeah.
of innovation.
Should be their slogan.
Yeah.
Samsung.
I
On the
give it
edge
an
of
8 out
innovation.
of 11 just because it's the S8.
Oh,
That's a
Give
good
it
answer.
a 32.
whoa, that's gonna explode.
Yeah. Before
Okay.
you get it in your house.
It's going to be lit, guys. Before they interrupted me, I was going to ask them about autofocus selfie camera. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so, and I think it's actually really interesting
Mm-hmm.
because it could be a new differentiator for high-end smartphones.
Yep.
Like, because they're trying to compete on very small things now, and most cell phones are very similar in specs and design. So having a really good quality front-facing camera could be a powerful tool for sales. And considering how much front-facing video we do these days,
Yeah.
people will want it.
Samsung's all about the cameras too,
Yeah.
right? So it makes sense.
But their selfie cameras have been notoriously horrible.
not in the
So-
S7 though.
Yeah. I don't
Com-
know. In
in
comparison to.
In comparison to what,
an
Zach? And also, where are
iPhone.
you like drawing? I've never heard someone compare about this, complain about the camera.
it's
That's
great.
interesting.
It's a great
I think,
camera.
Like, no, the rear camera, awesome. On the S7, the best camera on any smartphone, I would say. And I love my iPhone, and I'm saying this. But
We should record this and just
Yeah.
play it on repeat in the office.
Yeah.
But the selfie camera, it's always just muddled, and it just doesn't have the focus. It doesn't have the clarity
But
that.
no smartphone selfie cam has focus, right? Like it's a fixed focus, so you have to kind of.
This
Your
one he's pulling out of
iPhone-
his pocket.
It doesn't have a focus.
No, but it's a lot more clear.
Is he
You know,
taking
sure.
a selfie live on camera?
Sure.
that if we had an an S7 or a Note 7 or SMBs in your hands, I could show you, and then I'm pretty sure you'd agree.
All
But
right,
yeah,
whatever.
But maybe you could tell us more about like what autofocus means.
So
in
okay,
comparison.
so well, basically, on a fixed focus camera, the focus is fixed at a certain point, and you just have to like move the camera around.
Yep.
Otherwise, your face looks pretty soft, right? Like soft as in like the focus is not perfect, like which is sometimes not a bad thing on your face. Most people prefer their face to kind of be a bit softer, just so that it looks like
you don't want to see all
younger.
those horrible details.
The pores and the wrinkles and so on.
4K.
But yeah, it's a great thing, I think. Like, and the interesting thing is, it also there might be some more kind of like interesting software applications for this, where like Snapchat's, like the face swapping and the filters and stuff would be more would work better, just because the camera is like the face algorithm, like it's perfectly focused on your face. The software recognizes that's a face, and then the filters get applied more consistently.
I'm
Good
looking
point.
forward to becoming a puppy.
Yes, you'll be the cutest puppy ever.
Thank you.
And last but not least, will it have a 4K display and have some? What's the VR focus going to be?
It will not have a 4K display because 4K on a cell phone doesn't make sense right now. There's no 4K content.
Yep.
and having like a 4K menu just seems stupid to me. 4K is important for VR, but it's not there yet. I think the phone would have difficulties pushing a 4K display in VR because you're like rendering two things at once. I just don't see it happening.
But with that Snapdragon E35 VR,
VR ready. Yeah, I guess I'm gonna say no too. I wouldn't predict that.
what was their last screen? 2K?
It's QHD.
QHD.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be the same.
So last but not least, and this one just comes to mind, is it going to be Daydream certified, or is it Samsung going to like fly the cuckoo's nest and be like, hey, it's Project Dream certified?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Samsung's going to continue propping up their quickly soon to be dead VR platform. But the phone will also be Daydream certified, so it's going to be both.
Yeah.
That would be smart.
Yeah.
That would be the smart thing to do. I hope it does that.
I think people are afraid of putting those phones on their faces now, though.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, yeah.
That's true.
It's getting a little hot in here.
Yeah, they do get really hot.
Yeah.
Like even the S5 and the S7,
Absolutely.
with use it with the Gear VR, it gets really, really hot.
Yeah.
Or maybe like the standout feature is going to be some sort of
It's a hand warmer.
fire. Well, yeah, we said that in the winters in Canada, right? It's going to have some like fire suppression feature that just like self extinguishes.
There's a fire
itself.
extinguisher built in.
Yeah. Your phone starts smoking. No. That's just it's just cooling down. Sorry. Dry ice cooled.
I guess the last point is, normally the cadence for Samsung has been to release this phone shortly after, or they've gotten better about releasing it shortly after Mobile World Congress. Do you see being? Are they going to wait to make sure it's safe?
I think they're still going to reveal it at. So I guess that conflicts with my point before. I think they're still going to reveal it at Mobile World Congress because that's what they've always done. But it would maybe be nice if they like waited, because then you know for sure that the phone's not going to fall apart. It's not going to explode.
Yeah.
But I guess in a roundabout way to answer that, they will totally reveal it at Mobile World Congress.
Right.
Okay.
Quality testing. Yes. I would say yes.
Okay. Our producer Robin is gesturing at me to finish up the show. So I hope
say
you
yes
brought
as well.
good shout outs. I don't
Quick.
care what you think, Zach. What's your shout out, Zach?
No, I don't care. No.
He's going to protest and not do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
No, I
I'm just
totally
gonna
do care about
sit
your
here
opinion.
with the arms crossed and just
No.
yeah,
You didn't think
I
of
don't
one,
know. I
did you?
didn't. You put me on the spot here. Okay, gosh.
Here,
Well-
wait. Let me do mine. Shout out to Roger's One Number.
Rest in peace.
Rest in
as well.
peace.
That's a
Some
rip.
people really loved you. Basically, it was a service where you could. It was a VoIP service that they offered for free, and you could use it when you were traveling, or you could use it to text through your PC. And now, at the end of January 31st, 2017, it's gonna be gone. So
Guy Lawrence would have not made that decision.
he would have kept it around. No,
And
he
made
would have.
it better.
My shout out. Oh, were you not done yours?
No,
you're
I
still
was
going? I
just
didn't wanna
trying
cut
to
you
think
off,
of
sorry.
what Guy Lawrence would say, and he would probably say, "Cut that piece of garbage out." I don't know.
Cut that
Yeah.
extra baggage off.
That's right.
My shout out goes to the visual effects studio underneath our office that shall remain nameless, that frequently plays the same track over and over again when they're editing video. And this week, the one that we were treated to is like some kind of weird atmospheric music with some sick guitar riff in the middle of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
right in the middle.
What
And
did I say it sounded like?
It goes.
That's perfect. And we've
Yeah.
listened to that all day for, I don't know, 3 days at full blast, because that's how you have to edit visual effects.
Yeah, super loud, and then they turn it off and start yelling at each other.
Yeah.
Entertaining.
So Zach?
I'm gonna shout out to this program that I like that I use called Mars Edit, but it's by Red Sweater. So it's really good if you use WordPress or many other blogging platforms. Like, it's pretty sweet. You can just kind of do the editing offline, and you don't have to worry about internet connection dropping out and losing all your crap. So
Nice.
it's
What's
good
your
stuff.
personal coupon code for that?
You can enter coupon code
Type in
/Zach. And
Zach MS.
No, it's just pretty sweet. Everyone knows that you should never write in the your content.
I live
management
life
system.
dangerously.
We
We
do.
had to.
So do I.
Yeah.
In all the years that I have been doing this, I have many times thought that I have lost something in WordPress, but I have never ever actually lost it.
Just wait that one time, and you'll cry.
It auto saves all the time now.
It's true.
You're right.
It is better than what it used to be.
You're right
sure.
though that I should be using something else, but I'm irresponsible and refuse to.
My shout out goes to Kirk Douglas. He turned 100 today.
Wow. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Kirk Douglas. You were an awesome actor. And on that note, since he turned 100 and it's our 100th episode next week, see what I did there, folks? Please tune in next week because it is going to be one hell of a banger. It's going to be awesome. We have some special guests planned, some fun activities, but you'll have to wait until next week to see it.
Fun activities like that.
Yes.
But there are going to be cool special guests.
Maybe there'll be giveaways. I don't know.
We'll be making bunk beds out of 2 single beds. And there'll be so many room for activities.
Yes. Thank you for listening. I'm Igor. Take it easy.
See ya.
Bye.